Hi there and welcome back to Japan. You've seen my initial review of FLEU FLEU, probably I'll put a link in the description below, where I just heard the song the night before I went to see them live, and now you're going to see how much my opinion changed after seeing them live. Shall we? Not only was it a fantastic concert that they did with Trident, I did a video about the Trident side of the gig as well. They did about 45 minutes each. We're going to talk about FLEU FLEU's side, but not just that, but also after coming out of the gig, I got even more surprising information that I suddenly find out about them that I didn't know. So let's just try and put this into some context and really sort of kick things into gear. Now, obviously Trident just finished playing, and then FLEU FLEU come out. They are the artist whose name is at the back of the stage. There's about sort of just under 200 people crammed into the Eggman, a very beloved venue in Shibuya. You know, the bit in Tokyo with the famous crossing. It's not really the centre of Tokyo, but it's the bit that everyone sees on TV. Anyway, it's a venue there. It's the cool place. And this is a venue where a lot of bands going in the up-and-coming direction, pointing in the right way, go. Now, obviously, FLEU FLEU have been around for a good few years, around for about 6 years, so they're not exactly so much up and coming, especially considering that they would announce their breakup a couple of days before the show. And we will talk about that as well. But they are a band definitely who have really wowed a lot of the smaller scenes. I get so many recommendations to review them, and it was just a pleasure to see them. Even though I had initially gone for Trident, it was such a pleasure to see them as well. So let's first of all start by just talking about the basic gig, about the performance. Now, basically, from what I had initially gathered by seeing some of their videos and doing that one review of them the day before, I kind of got the feeling of this sort of pop rock band who had a really nice sort of clean sound, and it was just kind of, it was fairly easy access kind of stuff. Now, what happened, obviously you expect bands to be a little bit heavier when you see them live anyway, because you can lean into that distortion a bit more. You've got the sound of a venue, it's all just a little bit more gritty. The bass drum's always kicking through the floor and hitting you in the chest a bit more. It all feels that bit more raw. And it's not to say they suddenly turned into like a heavy rock band, but they really lent into that side well, and we got to see the musicians really step up. The songs were all the ones that 45-minute set, but they added a sort of a nice sort of rocky energy to it. They were really bouncing around the stage. They had that feel to them of a band that was full of life, which is rather surprising considering they're announcing their own death. Sadness reigns. But one of the things that was particularly interesting is, as I mentioned in the Trident review of this live show, both bands did one song by each other. And the song that FLEU FLEU did, by the way, I keep on calling them FLEU FLEU, but when they pronounce their own name live, it's like Fleufleu. It's like in the hiragana, katakana way. Anyway, I'm calling them FLEU FLEU. That's what I'm going to call them. The song they did was Cry Out. I'm pretty sure, I keep on getting the name of that song wrong. I keep on calling it Call Out when it's Cry Out, or Cry Out when it's Call Out. Howard, scroll back and see if you can find the name of the song. Cry Out. It is Cry Out. Good. Okay. They did Cry Out, which is one of the faster, rockier, heavier Trident songs, and they absolutely nailed it. Funny thing is that when Trident were playing it, they were playing, they had one guitarist, so they're playing that with a backing track playing the other guitar. But of course, in the case of FLEU FLEU, no such problem, so they played the guitar lines together, which meant that in a way, their performance was almost more authentic than Trident's. It was really well done, and that brought me on to my next real big feeling about that, which is really about the individual musicians. And I had a lot to break down about all four of them. For simplicity's sake, I'm going to start with the drummer, because no discredit, but she's the one who I probably had the least to say about, because of the fact that she was just pure solid goodness. So tight playing. The playing was really tight, metronomic. She was just fantastic. The drum lines that she was playing as a general were pretty creative. It's pretty good stuff. It didn't seem like it was anything that was hugely pushing her too far, but I just felt like she was such a solid, just like a rock at the back of the band, that it felt like everything else was just worked because of that. Now, the funny thing is, one of the things I am going to mention is just about how tight their timing was as a band, and of course that wouldn't be the case without the drummer. So they are an extremely tight sounding band. There were some little flaky moments, but as a general, they were like, it was like a studio performance every single song, and that has to be credited very heavily to the drummer. You are going to realize as this goes on that I don't know the names of any of the members, because I did research it. I don't remember names. Drummer, fantastic. The bass guitarist gave me a little bit of a surprise. She was great. She was happy, bouncing around stage, but I just thought, oh, she's just a really good bassist. She's great. Yeah, she's nice. Got such a wonderful, happy persona on stage. So much fun in her personality. And yeah, playing really great. Again, like with Trident, she came up with a totally different amp, but she just had a brilliant bass tone. You know, venue helped that as well, but really great tone. And she was doing a lot of slap playing as well. She just was having a lot of fun. But then I found out, like a few days afterwards, I was on Twitter and I tweeted about the show, and she, the bassist, amongst other people, liked the tweet. And so I just had a little look on her page, and suddenly I realised not only is she the bassist of Fleufleu, but she's also the bassist of one of my other like favourite upcoming bands, which is a band called Unwave, which is now, I believe, is just a duet, her and the singer. It used to be a band of 4, but they're now down to 2. They've got refined that. And yeah, I was just blown away by that. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe I hadn't noticed that. I'm more of a listener than a looker. I listen to bands more than I look at the pictures and videos. But it suddenly clicked. I was like, oh my God, it's the same person. And to hear 2 small, but you know, still very creditable and liked bands have a shared member that you didn't know about, I was like, suddenly she has become one of my favourite people in the world. So I loved her performance, but it was elevated so much realising she's the same person in Unwave. I was like, that is cool. That just shows you have great taste as well as great playing ability. Massive credit to her. Now, the lead singer was a real surprise for me. I didn't really want to say it too much when I did my initial review, but I was a bit impartial of most of what I've heard of her on recorded stuff, because she never really sounds like she's singing with a vast amount of energy. She just kind of sounds like, yeah, she's doing, yeah, singing okay. Live, not only is she, was she pitch perfect with exception to, there was one song, which I think was like the 3rd song, where just it sounded like her and the guitarist, the lead guitarist, maybe there was a couple of them got confused about the pitch and it sort of started off in the wrong key or something. But with exception to that weirdness in one of the songs, she was pretty much bang on pitch perfect all the way through, and she sung with so much more energy. Like when you hear her singing on the normal song, she's kind of singing like this, medium energy. Singing live, she's belting it out. And this might partly be down, I should point out actually, when they did Cry Out, you might know Cry Out by Trident, there's that last note at the end where it goes, she went for it, just a little bit flat, but she went for it. I was really impressed by that. Yeah, she was just fantastic rock energy, and this might have also been down to the fact that halfway through the show they had the little bit where they slowed down and they had a little talk to the audience, and they were talking about breaking up, and the lead singer was like openly in tears. You know, she was tearing up, she was crying, and you could tell there was a lot of emotion. Now, I don't know exactly what each member's going to do in the aftermath of the band, but clearly this meant a lot to her. And yeah, you could really see it on her face. So I don't know whether this has always been the case with her. Certainly speaks wonders for her potential moving forward, but there is a lot more to that woman, to her performance, to her live passion, as well as her skill, than you can tell from the recordings. Obviously in recordings, you know, you expect everyone to sound good because it's a recording, you get the best take. But she nailed that, and she showed a lot of passion as well, which was just brilliant. I really loved that. Now, as I reel off a list of members of this band who are basically like heroes for me now, just they're all so great, we have to talk about the lead guitarist, because I left her for last for a reason. She better go on to do something great. Now, I am not someone who gushes about guitarists. You guys know this. If anything, there's so many guitarists. They're so ubiquitous. They're in every band. 2 or 3 members in each band as a guitarist. I tend to be very hard to impress with guitarists. And it's not that she was up there doing some crazy solos. She was just, her whole persona was brilliant. She kind of had fun. She had a bit of a smile. She nailed every single note. But I think if you're a musician, I mean, I'm more of a songwriter than a musician, but I'm more of a reviewer than that nowadays. But I know what it feels like as a musician, and just you could read on her face, like she's playing, she's having fun, and she nailed every single note. But there was like one bit where I think that she was in Cry Out, where she was doing the solo, and you could just tell she just like dropped. There was like one really fast back and forth bit in the solo, and she just fell a little bit behind beat, and you could see a little grin coming on her face, like a little bit behind. I think most people in the audience wouldn't have even noticed that, but just seeing her engaging with what she was playing, she was so on point. She played with a lot of flair, a lot of personality. There was no arrogance to her at all. she was like one of those people. She was the person who I was closest to, and I must admit I couldn't really stop watching her playing, because it's hard to explain, but just everything about the whole way she came across as a fantastic musician who just was enjoying herself. And yeah, I was really blown away by her performance. I get the feeling she's a sort of guitarist who could pretty much play whatever you give her. She's like when you see a session musician play and they're just kind of chilled and they're playing something that's like relatively difficult, but they're okay. She kind of gave me that whole vibe, and I just liked her whole persona. She was like the antithesis of the stereotypical guitarist. So yeah, I really enjoyed them. Each individual member gave me something to engage with, which was just fantastic as well. Just to address a couple of things that I'd said in my review. First of all, I pointed out in my review that I felt that they were the kind of band who, this is before they broke up as well, I felt, say they were going to break up, I felt they were a band who maybe they could have used the keyboard player to appeal to the poppier elements of their sound. Now, having heard how musically just great they were live, I can see why they don't particularly need that. However, I do still think those bright, colourful sounds in the recordings, in the studio recordings, do mean that they could do something really useful with that fifth member if they were to continue. Or if the lead guitarist, given that she seems to just give that air of professionalism, if she is the one playing keyboard as well, or maybe lead singer, I'd like to see them take advantage of keyboards in the sounds, even if it was one of the pre-existing members leaning into doing that along with playing their current instrument or alternating between. So I still think that they are a band who, they're not too trapped into that rock cycle. They know how to have fun doing the pop things. I mentioned about them, they played the song Spicker, which also Trident covered themselves during their part of the set. And there was a fun aspect to that song that, just little things like that. So they do still, as much as they really rock live, they still have that ability to have the fun pop element. So yeah, I still think that seeing them do something with that live would have been fun. However, it is no discredit to just how good their sound was. And yes, they blew me away in being much more, the singer's energy, like the delivery, her passion in her performance, was so much more than really came across in the studio recordings. And their musicianship was lovely to see in that kind of very raw setting. I often say this is why I like to see bands live after I've heard them in the studio. It's much better that way, because you get to hear what they want the songs to sound like, and then you get to hear them as people as a contrast to their product, and gives you that context. And yeah, I'm really glad the way that I've taken in this band. It's given me extra appreciation. So, conclusion time. In conclusion, I'm pretty much going to have to go through a few things I already said and just wrap this one up by pointing out that I went to this show primarily as a Trident fan. I left very much as a fan of both the bands. Now, obviously, Trident are a band very much on the way up, and Fleufleu appear to be on a band on the way out, but I will be actively following to see what each of the members does with their career. The bassist, I'm so glad she's with Unwave. Hey, maybe a couple of the other members will come over to Unwave as well. That would be really cool. But Unwave already has a singer, so I'd love to see what's going to happen with the singer of Fleufleu. Where's she going to go? I'm really happy to see where they go, because I think each member was fantastic, and I'd love to see something develop and blossom out of each one of their careers. But as this show went, really entertaining. I was just as entertained by Fleufleu as I was by Trident. And that's always great. When you go to see one band and the other band entertains you just as much, brilliant. They nailed the cover of the Trident song they did. Their set was full of really upbeat, fun songs and some meaningful ones. They did a really broke down ballad that I hadn't heard from them before, and it was really chilled out and beautiful, and went into this whole jazzy place that song really hit me. I should have mentioned that earlier, but this song just had such a jazzy bit in the middle, and the bass work was gorgeous. And they just had some really great music. It was thoroughly entertaining set, and yeah, I am kind of sad to see them go. Very much sad to see them go. I will be happy as long as the members each keep on doing something, and I was extremely happy to see the show, to enjoy the show, to just have experienced that before the band went. Because if I hadn't seen this live, that would have been a whole aspect of a band that I kind of liked that wouldn't have been able to take me to the next level. So, absolutely brilliant. Huge credit to all of them, and hopefully we'll be seeing them in some context soon. But there you go. Those are my opinions. And until I hopefully see you very soon in Japan for the next one of these, leave your comments down below if you've seen them or if you've got any opinions on them live. And until then, for now, cheers. Ciao, ciao. That made a lot of noise. Yeah.